The crystalline ships appeared in Earth's orbit on a quiet Tuesday morning, their surfaces refracting sunlight in mesmerizing patterns across the sky. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the control room of the Astronomical Research Center in Geneva, her eyes fixed on the massive holographic display showing real-time footage from satellites worldwide. The vessels defied conventional physics, their geometric shapes shifting and realigning like a kaleidoscope in slow motion. "Energy readings are off the charts," muttered Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, her colleague and the center's leading expert in xenophysics. "Whatever technology they're using, it's centuries beyond anything we've theorized." Within hours, the Krylians made their first transmission. Their message was simple, elegant, and precisely calculated. They came in peace, seeking to share knowledge and resources with humanity. Their ambassador, a being that called itself Nexar, appeared on screens worldwide. Its crystalline form sparkled with internal light, facets shifting as it spoke in perfectly modulated tones. General Diana Blackwood watched the transmission from the United Nations Security Council chamber, her weathered features masking decades of military experience. Something about the Krylians' perfection set off warning bells in her mind. 25 years of handling diplomatic crises had taught her that perfection often hid the deepest flaws. The Krylians' initial gifts seemed miraculous. They offered clean energy technology, medical advances, and solutions to climate change. Their ships landed in designated areas worldwide, establishing cultural exchange centers that drew millions of visitors. Their crystalline architecture rose from the ground like dreams made solid, each structure a perfect blend of form and function. Dr. Chen led the scientific team assigned to work with the Krylians. Every interaction was precise, every exchange calculated to the smallest detail. The aliens moved with geometric precision, their responses following patterns so perfect they seemed almost artificial. "They're like living computers," she told General Blackwood during one of their confidential meetings. "Every response, every action, follows mathematical principles. There's no randomness, no spontaneity." The general nodded, her suspicions growing stronger. "In my experience, Doctor, anything that seems too perfect usually is. Have you noticed how they react when things don't go according to their plans?" Sarah had noticed. During a recent experiment, when a junior researcher had accidentally knocked over some equipment, the Krylian observer had frozen momentarily, its crystalline surface clouding before it could process the unexpected event. As weeks passed, subtle patterns emerged. The Krylians always positioned their structures near areas of significant magnetic activity. Their questions, while seemingly focused on cultural exchange, repeatedly returned to Earth's core composition and magnetic field dynamics. Their gift technology, impressive as it was, seemed designed to collect data about Earth's geomagnetic properties. General Blackwood assembled a covered team, including Dr. Chen and Dr. Rodriguez, to analyze every interaction with the aliens. They worked in secret, using old-fashioned paper records and mechanical devices that the Krylians' advanced scanning couldn't detect. The truth began to emerge through careful observation. The Krylians weren't lying about sharing technology. They were simply omitting their true purpose. Each cultural exchange center was also a sophisticated scanning station. Each piece of gift technology contained sensors monitoring Earth's magnetic field. "They're mapping something," Dr. Rodriguez concluded, pointing to patterns in their data. "These aren't random locations. They're creating a grid, focusing on points where Earth's magnetic field is strongest." Sarah stared at the map, realization dawning. "They're not here to help us. They're studying us, analyzing our planet's magnetic field for something we haven't discovered yet." General Blackwood's expression hardened. "The question is, Doctor, what do they want with it? And more importantly, what happens when they decide to take it?" As if in answer, Sarah's tablet lit up with an alert. The Krylian ships were moving, realigning themselves in a new pattern above Earth. The perfect facade was about to crack, and humanity would soon discover that their advanced visitors had plans far different from their benevolent claims. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test not just humanity's technology, but our very nature against beings who had perfected themselves almost beyond recognition. The Krylians were about to learn that perfection had its price, and humanity's greatest strength lay in its beautiful imperfections. Dr. Sarah Chen's discovery came at midnight in an underground lab built inside an old World War II bunker. The facility, chosen specifically because its thick concrete walls blocked most scanning technologies, hummed with the sound of antiquated computers and mechanical equipment. She stared at the printout in her hands, double-checking her calculations. "General Blackwood needs to see this immediately," she told Dr. Rodriguez, who was examining a three-dimensional model of Earth's magnetic field patterns. The model, built using pre-digital technology, showed the Krylene ship's positions marked with red pins. Within an hour, General Blackwood arrived, her uniform slightly rumpled from a hasty departure from bed. She listened intently as Sarah explained her findings, her expression growing grimmer with each detail. "The Krylians aren't just studying our magnetic field," Sarah explained, spreading out paper charts across the steel table. "They're preparing to harvest it. These energy readings we've detected around their cultural exchange centers. They're not scanners. They're anchors for something much bigger." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, pointing to his model. "The ship's noob alignment isn't random. They're creating a resonance pattern that matches Earth's magnetic field frequency. It's like they're tuning a giant antenna." "But why?" General Blackwood asked, her eyes narrowing. "What could they possibly want with our magnetic field?" Sarah pulled out another set of papers, transcripts of conversations with their Krylian visitors. "We've been asking the wrong questions. We assumed their crystalline nature was their natural form. But look at these patterns in their responses about their homeworld." She highlighted several passages where the Krylians had described their planet, always in terms of perfect stability, perfect order. No magnetic variations, no tectonic activity, no atmospheric disturbances. "They're not naturally crystalline," Sarah concluded. "They transformed themselves to survive on a dying world. Their planet's magnetic field collapsed, and they converted their entire civilization into crystalline forms to preserve themselves. Now they travel the galaxy, searching for strong magnetic fields they can harvest to maintain their existence." The implications hit hard. Earth's magnetic field didn't just protect the planet from solar radiation. It was fundamental to all life on Earth. If the Krylians harvested it, they would effectively condemn humanity to extinction. General Blackwood's next question was predictable. "How long do we have?" Dr. Rodriguez consulted his calculations. "Based on their current positioning and energy buildup, I'd estimate 2 weeks before they can initiate the harvest. Once it begins, we'd have maybe months before the field collapses completely. 2 weeks to save the world," the general mused. "Any suggestions?" Sarah had been thinking about this since her discovery. Their crystalline form is both their strength and their weakness. They converted their entire civilization into this form because it was the perfect solution to their problem. But perfect solutions often have perfect failure points. She pulled out one more document, an analysis of Krylene behavior patterns during unexpected events. They're perfectly ordered, perfectly logical. Their responses follow absolute patterns. They literally cannot comprehend or adapt to chaos. A slow smile spread across General Blackwood's face. "And if there's one thing humans excel at, it's chaos." The general pulled out her secure phone, an old analog model the Krylians couldn't track. "I'm activating all sleeper cells worldwide. Dr. Chen, I need you to compile everything you've learned about their weaknesses. Dr. Rodriguez, map out every critical point in their resonance pattern. We're going to show these perfect beings what imperfect humans can do." As they worked through the night, more data poured in from resistance cells worldwide. The Krylians' perfect pattern had a flaw. They couldn't conceive of beings choosing an inferior solution when a perfect one existed. They couldn't understand why humans would use outdated technology when they offered advanced alternatives. This blindness to human unpredictability would be their undoing. Already, Resistance groups were organizing, using technologies and methods so primitive the Krylians didn't even think to monitor them. Morse code, shortwave radio, mechanical computers. Humanity was about to fight back, using weapons our enemies considered too primitive to be threats. Dawn broke over the bunker as they finalized their plans. In 2 weeks, the Krylians would attempt to harvest Earth's magnetic field. But humanity wasn't going to make it easy for them. The perfect crystalline beings were about to learn why Earth's imperfect, chaotic species had survived countless catastrophes throughout our history. The war for Earth's survival was about to begin, and humanity's greatest weakness, our chaos, would become our greatest strength. The first strike against the Krylians came not from advanced weapons or sophisticated technology, but from a group of street artists in Sao Paulo. They painted the walls near a Krylian exchange center with swirling, chaotic murals that seemed to shift and change in the sunlight. The crystalline beings stopped dead in their tracks, their perfect geometric forms clouding with confusion as they tried to process the unpredictable patterns. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the footage in the underground command center, a smile playing at her lips. "Look at how they freeze," she pointed out to General Blackwood. "Their minds literally cannot process art that doesn't follow mathematical rules." Around the world, similar scenes were playing out. In Tokyo, hackers transmitted random number sequences into Krylian communication networks. In Mumbai, street musicians played deliberately discordant music near their facilities. In Cairo, children flew kites in erratic patterns through their sensor grids. Each seemingly innocent act of chaos caused minute disruptions in the Krylians' perfectly ordered systems. "It's working better than we expected," Dr. Rodriguez reported, monitoring energy readings from the Krylian ships. "Their resonance pattern is already showing irregularities. They keep trying to compensate, but they can only do it by following their established protocols. They literally cannot improvise." But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Maria Torres, a psychology student working as an intern at the command center, noticed something in the Krylians' behavior patterns that everyone else had missed. "They don't just lack chaos," she explained, pointing to her observations. "They lack emotion. Every decision they make is purely logical, purely mathematical. They removed all emotional responses when they transformed themselves into crystalline beings." General Blackwood leaned forward, intrigued. "And why is that important?" Maria's eyes lit up with excitement. "Because emotion drives adaptation. Humans don't just solve problems with logic. We use intuition, empathy, even anger. Our emotions make us unpredictable, but they also make us incredibly adaptable." Sarah understood immediately. "That's why they can't handle our art, our music. It's not just the chaos, it's the emotional content they can't process." The resistance shifted tactics. Instead of just creating chaos, they began incorporating emotional elements into their disruptions. In London, protesters staged passionate theatrical performances near Krylian facilities. In Buenos Aires, couples danced tango in the streets, their movements both precise and emotionally charged. In Seoul, crowds gathered to sing together, their voices carrying complex harmonies laden with feeling. The effect on the Krylians was dramatic. Their perfect crystalline forms began showing signs of stress, microfractures appearing as they struggled to process these displays of emotional complexity. Their ship's energy patterns became increasingly erratic. But the Krylians weren't defeated yet. They responded the only way they knew how, with escalating force and precision. Their ships began emitting stronger resonance fields, accelerating their timeline for harvesting Earth's magnetic field. "They're pushing harder because they don't understand what's happening," Sarah explained during an emergency meeting. "In their perfect logic, if something isn't working, the solution is to apply more force in exactly the same way." General Blackwood nodded grimly. "Then we push back harder too, but not in the way they expect." "Dr. Chen, how quickly can we implement the next phase?" Sarah glanced at her team. The next phase was risky. It involved using the Krylians' own technology against them, but in ways its creators had never imagined. They had discovered that human emotions actually created subtle electromagnetic fields, fields that could interfere with Kryllian systems when properly amplified. "We're ready," she said. "The prototype emotion amplifiers are in place at key locations worldwide. We just need to coordinate the timing." As they prepared for the next phase of resistance, Maria made another observation that would prove crucial. "Look at how they cluster together when confused," she pointed out. "They're not just seeking physical proximity. They're trying to achieve consensus. They literally cannot act without perfect agreement among their group." This revelation provided another tactical advantage. While the Kryllians wasted precious time achieving consensus on every countermeasure, human resistance cells could act independently, each group adapting its tactics based on local conditions and immediate needs. The war for Earth's magnetic field had become a battle between two fundamentally different approaches to existence: the Kryllians' perfect, unchanging order versus humanity's beautiful, chaotic adaptability. And as the next phase of resistance began, it was becoming clear which approach held the true advantage. Humanity's greatest strengths, our emotions, our chaos, our ability to act independently while still working toward a common goal, were proving to be the perfect weapons against an enemy that had sacrificed these traits in pursuit of perfection. The breakthrough came in an abandoned steel mill in Pittsburgh. Dr. Sarah Chen stood amid rusting machinery, watching as engineers modified old electromagnetic coils with salvaged Kryllian technology. The resulting hybrid devices weren't elegant or perfect. They were ugly, asymmetrical combinations of human and alien tech. But they worked in ways the Kryllians couldn't predict or counter. "They're online," announced Dr. Rodriguez, monitoring readings on a cobbled-together display. "The emotional field amplifiers are reaching maximum intensity." Around the world, similar hybrid devices were being activated in locations chosen specifically for their emotional resonance, places of historical significance, cultural importance, or strong community bonds. The Kryllians had dismissed these locations as irrelevant, unable to comprehend how human emotions could concentrate in physical spaces. General Blackwood's voice crackled over an old radio. "Status report from all sectors." The reports came in using a mix of technologies: Morse code, analog radio, even signal flags in some areas. Each resistance cell had developed its own unique methods of communication, making it impossible for the Kryllians to monitor them all. In New Delhi, protesters had surrounded a Kryllian facility with thousands of small mirrors, creating chaotic light patterns that disrupted their crystalline sensors. In Rio de Janeiro, carnival dancers performed near their ships, their passionate movements generating emotional fields that interfered with Kryllian communications. In Istanbul, the call to prayer from hundreds of mosques created harmonic frequencies that resonated with their equipment in unexpected ways. "Their ships are showing signs of stress," Sarah reported, studying the data. "The combination of emotional fields and chaotic patterns is creating microfractures in their crystalline structure." But the Kryllians weren't defeated yet. Their ships began to emit powerful dampening fields, attempting to suppress the human resistance. In some cities, they deployed crystalline constructs, geometric shapes that moved with perfect precision, designed to impose order on chaos. That's when Maria's latest insight proved crucial. "They're trying to impose their patterns on us," she explained, "but they can only create perfect shapes, perfect patterns. They literally cannot comprehend or create imperfection." This limitation became their weakness. Human resistance fighters began using deliberately imperfect tactics, asymmetrical warfare in its truest sense. They created devices that were intentionally flawed, battle plans that incorporated random elements, and strategies that evolved chaotically. The Kryllians, unable to predict or understand these imperfect approaches, found their perfect defenses increasingly ineffective. Their crystalline constructs, programmed to respond to mathematical patterns, couldn't handle the randomness of human creativity. In the Pittsburgh Command Center, Sarah and her team monitored the worldwide resistance efforts. The emotional field amplifiers were working better than expected, creating zones where Kryllian technology began to malfunction. Their perfect crystalline forms showed increasing signs of stress, developing cracks and imperfections as they struggled to maintain their order in the face of human chaos. "They're retreating from ground positions," General Blackwood reported, falling back to their ships. But why? The answer came from orbital monitoring stations. The Kryllian ships were realigning themselves, forming a perfect geometric pattern above Earth. They were preparing for their final attempt to harvest the planet's magnetic field. They're desperate, Sarah realized. They can't understand why their perfect plan isn't working, so they're accelerating their timeline. They think if they can just complete their harvest quickly enough, our resistance won't matter. But humanity wasn't about to let that happen. The resistance had one more card to play, a plan so chaotic, so emotionally charged, that the Kryllians couldn't possibly prepare for it. "Initiate Operation Harmonic Discord," General Blackwood ordered. Across the globe, resistance cells began their final coordinated effort. But unlike the Kryllians' perfect coordination, each group added its own unique elements to the plan. The result was a symphony of chaos, a worldwide demonstration of humanity's ability to act as one while remaining uniquely individual. As the sun set over Pittsburgh, Sarah watched the energy readings spike on her monitors. The final battle for Earth's magnetic field was about to begin, and humanity's greatest weapon would be the very thing the Kryllians had sacrificed in their quest for perfection, our beautiful, powerful imperfection. Operation Harmonic Discord began at dawn. 7 billion humans, each contributing their own unique frequency to a planet-wide symphony of chaos and emotion. The Kryllian ships hung in perfect geometric formation above Earth, their crystalline surfaces reflecting the rising sun as they prepared to harvest the planet's magnetic field. In the Pittsburgh Command Center, Dr. Sarah Chen monitored the massive energy buildup. "They're beginning the harvest sequence," she reported. "Energy readings are off the charts." But this time, humanity was ready. The hybrid devices they'd built weren't just defensive measures. They were conduits for something the Kryllians had never encountered before, the combined emotional energy of an entire species fighting for survival. "All sectors, initiate primary sequence," General Blackwood ordered through the old radio network. Around the world, people gathered in millions of small groups, each following their own cultural traditions. In Japan, Buddhist temples rang their bells in deliberately irregular patterns. In Africa, tribal drums beat out ancient rhythms. In Europe, cathedral organs played complex harmonies. In the Americas, indigenous peoples performed ceremonies that had survived centuries of change. The Kryllians' perfect formation wavered as they detected the rising chaos. Their sensors, designed to measure precise mathematical patterns, couldn't process the overwhelming complexity of human expression. "Look at their ship formations," Dr. Rodriguez pointed to his display. "They're trying to compensate, but they can't maintain perfect geometry while processing so many random inputs." Maria's voice came over the radio from her position in New York. "The emotional readings are exceeding our projections. Every human on Earth is contributing their own unique frequency to the field." The Kryllians responded the only way they knew how, by increasing the power to their harvesting beams. The sky crackled with purple energy as they pushed their technology to its limits, trying to overcome human resistance through sheer force. That's when Sarah initiated the final phase of their plan. "Activate the resonance inverters," she ordered. The hybrid devices they'd built began to pulse in sync with Earth's magnetic field, but with a crucial difference. Instead of trying to impose order like the Kryllians, they amplified the natural chaos of the field. Every human emotion, every irregular heartbeat, every spontaneous thought added to the growing discord. High above Earth, the Kryllian ships began to show signs of strain. Their perfect crystalline structures, unable to adapt to the overwhelming chaos, developed spreading fractures. Their formation, once a marvel of geometric precision, began to break apart. "Their consensus is breaking down," Maria reported excitedly. They can't agree on how to counter something they don't understand. The Krylian commander's transmission, cut through all communications channels, its once perfect voice now fragmented with static. This is impossible. Your species is inferior. Your chaos should not be able to overcome our perfect order. General Blackwood's response was firm. You never understood us. Our chaos, our emotions, our differences, they're not weaknesses. They're the source of our strength. We adapt, we change, we evolve. And most importantly, we do it together while remaining unique. The effect of humanity's combined resistance reached its peak. The Krylian ships, their crystalline structures now riddled with fractures, began to retreat from Earth's orbit. Their perfect formation had shattered, their harvest technology rendered useless by the very chaos they'd sought to eliminate from themselves. In a final burst of energy, the remaining Krylian ships vanished into deep space, leaving behind only fragments of crystalline debris that burned up in the atmosphere like falling stars. In the aftermath, as celebrations erupted worldwide, Sarah stood with her team watching the sunrise. They thought perfection meant eliminating chaos, she mused. They never understood that true perfection includes imperfection. They converted their entire civilization into crystalline form to survive. Maria added, but in doing so, they lost the very thing that makes survival worthwhile. The ability to grow, to change, to feel. General Blackwood nodded, looking at the data showing Earth's magnetic field returning to normal. They came looking for a resource to harvest, but they found something else instead. A lesson about what truly makes a species strong. As humanity began to rebuild, incorporating some of the salvaged Krylian technology into their own civilization, they did so in their own chaotic, creative way. The hybrid devices they'd created during the resistance became the foundation for a new kind of technology, one that embraced both order and chaos, logic and emotion. The Krylians had come seeking to impose their perfect order on Earth. Instead, they'd learned a profound truth. True strength lies not in achieving perfection, but in embracing imperfection and using it to grow, adapt, and evolve. Humanity had proven that their greatest perceived weakness, their beautiful chaotic diversity, was actually their greatest strength.